Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction. The talk gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com today for more info, or you can always email me directly through Benji at alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have the impressive Karl Peterson. We're going to be discussing his amazing book, Journey to the Prize, available for purchase through Amazon, as well as barnesandnoble.com. And people, I'm going to tell you why you need to purchase this book in just a few moments. Before we go any further, though, I want to take this opportunity and point out that Karl was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best advertising firms in the business. And people, you already know, I'm talking about CITI of Books. So listen to me. For my writers out there who have gone through their process, spending some sleepless nights at times, creating your masterpiece, although now you've done it. You've developed that book, and now you need help moving it. Well, if that's you, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give and contact CITI of Books. I'm telling you, they're one of the best in the business to do it, and this is exactly what they specialize in. So head on over to cityofbooks.com today and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Karl here on the line. As I mentioned, his book, Journey to the Prize, is something you want to add to your shelf. This book it's based just before World War II. It's a historical fiction, and I'm telling you, a non-stop page-turner. Step into the shadows of Nazi Germany with a novel that intertwines the courage of one man's fight for righteousness. Uncover the layers of bravery and moral dilemmas in a time of darkness. This historical fiction offers a gripping tale of resistance and the quest for humanity. I'm telling you, people, when you pick up this book, you're not going to want to put it down. You are going to be hooked from the very first word. And at the end of the day, don't take my word for it. Take Karl's. It's his book. He's written it. And he's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. But one thing to be certain of is we're only going to scratch the surface here today. By the time we've concluded, you're going to run to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and purchase your copies because you're going to understand that this is a journey you want to embark upon. Karl, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fine, and thank you for having me as your guest today.
Absolutely. Karl, listen, it was a no-brainer. When the opportunity came to have you as a guest, we jumped at it. I truly mean it. I think what your book is doing here is something that we can all resonate with, something that is just an adventure to get lost in. And something that, listen, there's a lot of Hollywood films that have revolved around this, man. So, without going too far down that rabbit hole, Karl, I think you're onto something. And I think that this is something that could be developed long term into a feature film. Now, before we go into the book, Karl, I do think it's important to start by learning a little bit more about yourself. So, without further ado, who is Karl Peterson?
Well, I'm a native of New Jersey. I lived here all my life, and I grew up in Monmouth County on the Jersey Shore. You may know my area is the home of Bruce Springsteen. Mm-hmm. He lives in Rumson, New Jersey, and Bruce was born in Freehold. And I always grew up living by the shore, by the Jersey Shore. And I've been, I haven't moved, and so I've been here all my life, living here.
Yeah. Well, listen, as an East Coast boy myself, I'm a little further east. I'm from Providence. But I've spent a lot of time in New Jersey, and of course at the Jersey Shore. It's a beautiful place and something that, I often loved to visit when I was there on the East Coast. Of course, I've spent almost the past 2 decades now resting my head here in Los Angeles, California, but I take time to visit the East Coast whenever I have the opportunities to. It is a fantastic place, and people, for those of you listening in, you gotta visit Jersey. I mean, it's just something like Jersey, you know what I mean? It's a different experience, and you're gonna want to check it out. Head out over there.
Yeah, I understand.
Karl, let's jump right in. Of course, The Anchor is all about your fantastic novel, Journey to the Prize. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, it takes place in 1933, and it involves my main character, Manny Guzman. He lives with his brother, at a horse ranch in Paraguay in South America. And historically, there have been German immigrants who have lived in South America. So it's Manny and his best friend Alex, and he's of that heritage as a German immigrant there. And he has a cousin named Alois who lives in Germany, so part of the family lives there. But he works at a science institute, and he's being forced to work on a new project after the Nazis take power there. And he doesn't want to go along with it at all. And he calls his cousin, Alex, in Paraguay, if he can help come there to smuggle out these plans, and Manny goes along with him. And then the drama gets more intense. The drama gets more intense as the story progresses.
Mm-hmm. Karl, I'm curious, what inspired you to write this novel? What was the precipice that set you on this journey?
Well, first, I liked history. And I always was good in geography and history in school, and said, let me put some fiction to work in a novel. And when people read the book, they'll notice that the characters like drinking coffee, and that's because when I was younger, I always went to my grandmother's house to have coffee. I liked coffee since I was 10 years old, and so the characters, drink a lot of coffee there. And I also brought about the awareness of bullying. Some bullying is practiced in the book, and I wanted to show how wrong bullying is, as well as evil, and that I try to show in the book to people.
Well, listen, that's a notion we can all get behind. I mean, at one point or another, I'm sure we all have our own experiences with bullying and being bullied. So that is something that we can all get behind. But Karl, I want to stick here with inspiration for a second because, okay, we know what set you on this journey for this novel. But when it comes to creative writing, you mentioned you're a history buff. Okay, so I can see the connections here.
Yes.
But with regards to writing, were there certain authors or other writers that inspired you growing up? Was this a hobby of yours? Where does that love for creative writing come from, Karl?
It's sort of a little difficult to answer because I'm 69 years old, and I didn't start thinking about writing a book until after retirement, after I was 65. I always kept saying to myself, if I knew I could write, I would have taken creative writing back in my college days.
Yeah.
This was really a late phenomenon that came over me. Part of it might have been when the coronavirus hit. I wrote the book during 2021, and I sat down. I sat down at home day after day. I was working part-time, and what can I do? So let's see if I can write a book. Mm-hmm. It sort of came at a whim.
Well, listen, whatever was the precipice for it, we're glad that you did it because now we get to reap the rewards. People, again, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's Journey to the Prize by Karl Peterson. You're going to want to head on over there, pick up your copies, and get lost in this magnificent journey. Following up here, Karl, curiosity for myself, but what would you say was a highlight for you throughout this writing journey? Or if not a highlight, because maybe that carries the wrong connotation, what was maybe something that surprised you that you weren't anticipating before you began?
I think I could combine, as readers read the book, there's a little, I put together a few things into one book. There's some comedy in the book. There's a little bit of romance. And I thought, how can I I tried to think how I can bring everything together in a suspenseful novel, but have other highlights added to it. And there's light moments in the book where there's some romance, some comedy around the romance, and some little clues, other clues that someone might pick up that I wrote in the book. There's one example on one of my pages that I have when when Manny and Alex arrive in Berlin, their Alois picks them up to take them to his home, and they're passing through the street, and they stop at a traffic light, and they see a theater across the street, and the theater's name is the Kit Kat Club. And Manny innocently asks, what type of shows go on in there? That's a theater. What type of shows go on in there? And Alois says, oh, Manny, you don't want to go in there. The shows are bawdy there, if you ask me. But there's an American singer named Sally who's bringing down the house the last couple of years. But the new regime here is wanting to close down the cabarets. Now, I don't care one way or another. I thought I would add that in. That's a clue that goes back to the movie Cabaret. That's the movie with Liza Minnelli. That was the movie with Liza Minnelli. So I added a little clues of things that might perk up people's interest in the book by adding a little fact like that in there.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely formulating a bridge, right, for the listening audience members and for the readers alike. Karl, transitioning here to your writing process, but can you describe a moment for our listening audience when your own characters or storylines took on a life of their own, surprising even you as the author?
I can say that a lot of things came at a whim. I said, let's say when I named the characters, I didn't even have to think of them. This is this name. This is this name. And the characters, it didn't take long for me to even establish the names of the characters. Everything came to me so fast.
Karl, here for my next one. Now, my background is in filmmaking, and my listening audience knows this. So one of my favorite questions that I love to ask is diving down that rabbit hole and entering our imagination for a bit. Well, Karl, if you could enter the world of your book, the world you've created, and you can choose out of the hundreds of pages that you've written, you can only choose one page to land on and live in that world. Which page would you choose to land on, Karl, and why?
I like the page at the end when he receives the award from the president, when the book is coming to an end, and he finds out that he's going to receive an award from the president of the country, and the way he speaks, thanking everyone, and he's humble, and I wanted to make my character sincere and humble, and he humbly thanks the president for the award and the way they recognized him and his accomplishments, his bravery. And, of course, this is as the book is coming to an end.
Yeah. There you have it. Stepping back to the writing process here, because, it's interesting what happens for any artist. I mean, we're going to focus on writing now because, of course, you're an author. But from an artist perspective, we can all relate. The moment you hit print, the moment you hit send, the moment the director says action and it's time to perform, there is a vulnerability that comes across with sharing our artwork with the world, because the moment you release it, now it's in other people's hands and they have the power to criticize or not, right? But you leave yourself susceptible to that potential criticism. Well, Karl, I want to hear it from you. How do you handle self-doubt and maintain confidence in your writing abilities?
I can think of maybe there could be criticism of my characters. I was thinking that maybe some people might think they're too good, that they're too good, but I wanted them to come out against evil, and the right always wins.
Yeah.
Even though there may be criticism of the characters, personalities, or you might think they're too good, or in that way. But I still wanted them to be that way. I know when reading the book, the people really care for each other, the family there, and you see that the friends and the family members hug each other a lot in the book. I have that shown as well.
If I'm following what Karl is saying, I think what he's putting into words here for you is, listen, at the end of the day, people are going to criticize, and that is okay. That is well within your right. Everybody has their own opinions, but it's not going to stop him from articulating the story that he wants to do. So the message to be received is, listen, at the end of the day, ain't nothing to it but to do it, because you're doing this for yourself. You're not doing it for anybody else. People have criticisms. It is what it is. It's got nothing to do with you. You put it out there because this is what you want to do. I love that piece of advice there. And people, listen, you know what I love even more? Is we have discussed so much information here today, but yet we've barely scratched the surface. There is still so much left to be discovered. There's a lot of meat left on that bone. And Amazon and Barnes & Noble are where you have to go to get it. Make sure you pick up copies of this magnificent book. As we close out of here, Karl, my final question for you. What's next? I mean, what's on the horizon? I know this was a kind of spur-of-the-moment type thing through the pandemic that you got this interest to write. Well, I'm hoping you caught the bug and you continue to push forward. What's on the horizon for you, Karl?
Maybe, and this is a big maybe. Toward the end of the book, there's two questions, and it leaves open a clue that everything's not finished, and there's possibilities of a continuation. There's two questions. As you come to the last chapter, there's two open questions, and I won't say what they are now.
Smart man.
And a plot, I was thinking up, and then the beginning of, and this is just a maybe, that the beginning of the next book may open up with a meteorite coming down to Earth, and that's all I'll say.
There you have it. Listen, people, this is what we need to do. By the overwhelming show of support, when you head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you purchase copies for yourself. You purchase copies as a gift for other people to add to their shelf as well. By that overwhelming show of support, that's going to be the notion, that's going to be our message to Karl, to let him know that another book is needed. All right? We are yearning for it. It starts with Journey to the Prize. Do your part. Head on over there. Pick up copies. And like I said, if we all can work in unison to purchasing this, that's going to be the incentive that Karl needs to embark upon this next one, because just with that little bit that he put out with the meteorite coming, well, listen, now my interest is piqued, and I know yours is as well. Head on over there. It starts with this fantastic book. Karl, this has been a true pleasure, an absolute honor. Thank you once again for being a guest for People of Distinction.
Oh, yes, and thank you very much for your time.